What did he have? Three-quarter inch racing cam?
Oh, no.
Ideski was the one now. Ideski was nice camshaft.
Iskandarian?
Yeah.
No. This was a Crowler. It was 314 lift, or 314 duration, 625 lift.
I had the coolest kitchen when I had my house in Inglewood.
This thing, if you got out of the Corvette and it was idling, you know, had the doors open, they'd bounce up and down about this high. I'm not kidding. I mean, it just like, it was bad.
And that's back when we had points and rotors and
yeah.
We didn't have fuel injection. We had a fuel pump.
Well, there was a fuel injection available, but
we had fuel pump. When you could buy triple plate chrome covers and all that cool stuff. I love dressing an engine now. I love dressing an engine. But yeah, my house in Inglewood, people crack up because you open a cupboard on the bottom and I had 2 brand new camshafts in the boxes sitting in the bottom. People are like, what's that? Those car parts? Yeah.
But we got pulled over by a highway patrolman. He was doing 65, and the cop pulled him over because the cop said you were trying to incite a race. No, he wasn't. He was holding his foot steady on the throttle, and the car was still surging at 65.
Jeez. And how much power was in that engine?
Uh,
That's when you're building engines that are way too big for the bodies. That's what that is. It overpowers the
I'm going to guess that it had to be up somewhere around about 650 horse.
And the suckers be putting bricks in the trunk to hold it down.
No.
Really?
That 65 Corvette would hook up.
That was the metal one, the two-tone jobber.
Well, they're all fiberglass, but
I thought they were.
It had a transverse rear spring on it.
I was pretty sure those had the metal.
Instead of, going parallel, it went over the top.
My buddy Paul Schwartz used to have a collection of those cars. He used to bring a new one out from Marshalltown, Iowa, every year to take sailing lessons for my dad. And what a treat. Oh my gosh.
But it looked like a lot of, remember the split window Corvette?
Okay, yeah.
Well, it was 2 years newer than the split window.
A lot of people didn't like that car. But that was a very nice car.
Oh, yeah.
But the only thing I have a problem with is here are the engineers because, God, what a nightmare to try to find that window. That was the biggest nightmare of all. If you break that window, you're done. There was one at the car show at Lake Mirror.
And they usually crack up over by where
and it was his dream car, and he ended up
gas cap is that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Had that great big gas cap in the back. Remember?
Even the newer ones had it. In the 80s and 90s, they had that big disc, and it looks like an emblem, and you can't figure out where to put the gas, and it turns out it's that big emblem.
Yeah.
It was, remember the cars
where you pop it open, and that goddamn hole going down through the tank, it was about that big, too.
Well, you remember some of the cars in the 80s where you had to open the license plate.
Yeah.
You had to flip it open so that you could put the fuel in. And you had to, hold the plate down to put the fuel in.
Where's the gas tank on a 56 Chevrolet?
Probably in the taillight.
It's the center button. You push the center button that's got the reflector in it. You push it. It's on the left side. You push it, and it flops up. And then you can get to the gas cap.
Well, I think that 53 CAD, that taillight, you flip it to put the fuel in it.
Yeah.
That's funny. They put it... But why would you put electric near a gas tank? That's kind of an odd combo. I wonder how many of those caught fire. DeLorean had a great idea. He took the body and built it out of this super fiber, and then he put a triangle gas tank right down the middle of the body before he put the top on. And his claim to fame was in that era, when they had the little Honda with a gas tank in the back, you'd hit it in a car accident and it'd blow up and kill whoever's driving. or anybody in the car. And they had the Pinto was the same way. It had that gas tank right on the back end. And I think the Maverick was the same because they looked about the same.
The Bronco was the same except for one item.
And
it had a big skid plate and rear guard that went over the gas tank. So the back gas tank was protected.
Yeah, but he thought that was right after he did that Pontiac, the big Pontiac that sold like a bat out of hell, when he took that grandma car and put good engine in it and nice tires. And
you talking about the Tempest?
No, he did
the Tempest is what he started with. He
ended
up doing the GTO.
The Pontiac GTO, that's the one that he spruced up.
Made off of a Tempest.
Yeah, and the old lady's car. And they were like, oh, hell no. And it was one of the biggest sellers they ever had. But, because they really didn't want to listen. It was all older guys on the board, you know. But he believed that the fuel tank needed to be more center to the car, because of all the cars that were getting rear-ended and blowing up and killing people. He thought it was a much safer mode to put that fuel tank right dead center. And he put like a triangle one in that DeLorean, right down dead center. So, and the impact rates on that car were incredible. On the crash impact rates on that car. It was amazing. Because he did that fiber undercarriage thing going on. The framing, all the framing was like a fiber thing. And it was actually a pretty tough little car. It just, he got socked with that new regulation. You know, like, I think it was when Reagan was in and they made all the mileage like 55.
Yeah.
Because Reagan claimed we'd save gas if everybody just went 55.
Yeah.
And which was really a bummer because honestly, I don't think we saved any gas.
And it wasn't always true.
Or time. But
because
I think it really designs depends on the design of the car.
Kathy's 67 Galaxy got better mileage at 65 than it did at 55.
Yeah, I agree. And but that's what happens when you take an actor and make him president. He thinks he's now a car engineer.
Yeah, he was just listening to, you know,
what they told him,
bending his ear.
Yeah, all the people giving him orders. You know, it's sort of like Trump, who's not going to listen to all that crap.
To the EPA.
And Kennedy was the same way. They didn't want to listen to that bull crap. They wanted to be their own man and run the country like they wanted, and it's a shame.
But you know, as quick as that Pontiac GTO was, there was a car running around, very popular in those days, that got much better gas mileage and was a hell of a lot faster. The Pontiac GTO would max out at about 130.
And that's pretty damn fast, you know.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when I was a kid, you used to look at these cars.
Red car.
Anyway, on the dash, it would say the speed, like you go to a Jag, and then some bitch would go like 180, you know. And then you go to American car, it'd be like 120. You go, damn, it's a fast car. Well, we don't know if it ever goes that fast. And the cars today, you will never want to run them on the max because of redline. It may have that on the Speedo, but you can't run it because you'll redline it, you blow it up. Do that to a Pontiac. A freaking Pontiac, you redline that sucker one time and run like trash the rest of its life. That's a guarantee. It will never run right if you hit that red line.
This little car came from...
And I'm not talking about DeLorean stuff. I'm talking about much later. Like
this little car came from the United Kingdom.
The early 2000s series of the Pontiacs.
Yeah. But this little car came from the United Kingdom. And they would all do, guaranteed, 150 miles an hour with a 6-cylinder.
Yeah, but you know what was neat in the UK? They have like kind of like an open speed limit. It's sort of like 200 miles an hour if you feel like it.
Yeah.
And it's like driving racetracks because they can drive really, really fast out there.
That in the
on the wrong side of the road. But it's just the way they do. And they do that in a lot of countries. It's strange how they haven't adopted that in the States.
But it was the Jaguar XKE.
Yeah, my mom had one. Whoa.
Every last one of them would do 150 mile an hour off the showroom floor.
They had 4 carburetors in them. It was a 68, 67. What year was that? The XKE, the 2.2 or 4.2, whatever it was.
Now they started out with a 3.6, then they went to a
The 4.
4.2.
That's the one my mother had, the 4.
And
it was stick shift.
then later, yeah, oh yeah,
all leather inside, and had the jump seats in the back, kind of like Porsche.
And it was a 5-speed.
God, what a car!
It was a 5-speed stick shift, but the problem was with first gear was not synchro.
My mom used to get in the car. It was a big thing. She charged this car on my dad. That's another funny story. But she had the leather gloves, the racing gloves, with the fingers cut off, kind of thing. And she would put these gloves on before she would drive the car. It was a big thing every time we got in the car. And we were just little. And so she's loved this car. My mother drove Cadillacs all the time. My parents were married. Brand new Cadillac from Bob Spring Cadillac in Long Beach. She always had the nicest car because my dad was in the Navy and he took care of my mother. We had the finest house on the street, the newest house, with all the new things that go with it. And, only because my dad was out in the water all the time. He was never home. But, man, she gets this Jag all of a sudden. And they called it fire engine red, which it really wasn't fire engine red. It was a metallic red. And this thing was pretty. I just saw one at the car show at Lake Mirror and videotaped that. And I cried. I had tears rolling down my face because I swore that was, after all the Jags I've seen all these years, I swore that was Mommy's Jag. And it had a beige interior in it. And it's actually a really small car.
Yes.
When I was little, we thought it was kind of big.
But
it's really a little tiny thing. It's short and it's little. She had the damn spokes on it with the spinners and the pinstripey tires. They were just absolutely beautiful things. And the only problem was that when we go to a gas station, my mother was not mechanical in any way. Now she could drive that bad baby. I gotta tell you, she was a clutch person for sure. No problem there. But we go to the gas station, they had the full service back then. And down there in Long Beach. And these guys would, they go, well, how do you get the hood open? And it's called bonnet.
Yeah.
And she'd say, oh, it's got 2 clothesline clips up there by the window. And they're like, huh?
Yeah.
And so what they would do is they didn't know what the hell they were doing. And you're taking this high dollar sports car into a gas station to get gas. And then they want to check all your fluids and your air and your tires. Wash your windshield, all that stuff like they used to do for free.
To get into it, yeah.
Full service gas station. Before they started charging for that, that was another thing. You got regular or full service, and it was like 7 cents higher to have the full service. But yeah, and so the guys would undo that clothesline clip over on the driver's side. They'd reach way over, and then right about the driver's side, middle of the window, there's a clothesline clip, and they'd clip that, and the whole bonnet would roll over, boom! And hit on the nose. And it only had that little chrome bumper thing on the front to protect the nose. And they were hand-beaten cars. That was one thing about them. They were hand-beaten cars.
And they were aluminum.
The bodies. Were they really?
Yes.
Jesus almighty. And that's amazing. And they're great for cornering. That was a freaking cornering car, I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, they dropped that damn bonnet, and my mom would throw a hissy fit. She was like a cat. She would get out there, and it would dent that damn bonnet in the nose every time they do that stupid, because it was so front heavy. When you undid that clip, it just pivoted by the wheels, bam, and hit the ground. And but I guess the design was because they had so much engine in there with the 4 carburetors on. It was easier to work on.
Yeah.
From the windshield to the front than it would be to have a bonnet that opens the other way.
Yeah.
Is probably why.
Yes.
So you could access everything, I imagine.
For access.
Yeah. But, man, and then the first time we took it in for brakes, it was $900.
Yeah.
At one of those.
All the way around.
Yeah, at one of those places, it was like Midas or some crap she took it to. And, when we go, the guy says, okay, $900. And she's like, what? And at that time, my parents were no longer married. And she'd already charged this car on my dad's credit, signed for it. They gave it to her, okay? And he didn't even know about it. And then on top of that, now we have a $900 brick job bill. Okay. And my mom like has to call my grandfather or something and to bail us out of that deal before they put us in jail because she's screaming Mimi in the middle of the shop, this big shop, because why is it $900? You've lost your mind. She thinks they're trying to steal the car. But it's because European, imports are more expensive to work on. But Jesus Christ, the car was costly, and she decided right there the party was over because it was so costly to have the car worked on, and she was not mechanically inclined like that, not for cars.
And not just
she could do
everybody
everything
could work on
but
it,
cars.
on the Jag.
Yeah, she could do everything but cars. It just was not her thing, and that's one of the things how I got into cars early was hanging out with my uncles at the truck stop that my grandfather started from my Uncle Lester, and hanging out with them and watching them work on tractor trailers, literally climbing up on the front of these big monsters and going, what is that? What is that? What does that do? Well, my uncle's turning wrenches, on these big diesels. And I learned a lot, And then my Uncle Eric would teach me stuff that my mother always had problems with. She always had a car that had a bad radiator. I don't know how that happened. And that's when the radiators were great. You could take them out, and you take them to a welder. You didn't have to go to a car shop. You just take them to a welder, and they would dip them and make them brand new instead of bright, shiny orange again. Because I think they were, copper, brass?
The copper.
Yeah. And then they'd weld on them if you stayed around to watch them do it.
Well,
they would charge you like $45 to service a radiator. And they would get all the leaks out of everything. They'd test it and then hand you a radiator back.
Yep.
And it's like,
then
wow.
paint it black.
They were
then
beautiful.
Hand you the radiator back.
Yeah.
That's radiator shops.
Oh, I love
over the
those
place.
radiators. Yeah, I remember that. And now they put out that garbage. It's aluminum in the middle. And you touch it, you dent the damn fins on it. And then 2 plastic boxes on each side. It's just stupid. Because what happens is those boxes are the first things to go.
Yep.
The next break, the freaking box cracks, pulls away from the damn metal, and they're not really meant to be serviced. There's a guy in Dothan that does them, in Dothan, Alabama, out on 52. And they say he services those radiators like that, and he will put you new boxes on for like $30, $50 if you go down there. And I've only known one other guy that did that, and there was an Oriental guy, a Chinaman, in California, out in Culver City, that was a mechanic, and he did my brand new Cadillac that I had drove out. I had it 3 months. I drove out to California, and the radiator blew coming through needles. It was so hot. It was like 102, and the car could not take it. And I was having trouble with it, and Jaypo's like, when I got to California, he's like, you need to take it to the radiator guy over there in Culver City. And I'm like, who? And he's like, that guy is over there. And so I took it over there, and the little tiny Oriental guy, they were the best mechanics in California. And I'm like, this car keeps overheating. I can't stop it. And I think it's coming from here. So he looks and starts the car, and he's watching. He said, I see what it's doing. He said, I fixed for you $70 for the stuff. But it was a $400 job. Because he had to pull a radiator out.
Right.
And then he took the
to
box
remove
off.
all the clips.
Yeah, that has all these big clips on there. And however he took the box off and then glued it and then put it in and redid the clips and then dropped the radiator back in, and then it worked. And then not just like a week or two after that, my freaking alternator went stupid. And I was down there at the sailing academy in Randy Del Rey at my dad's. And he's like, what's wrong with your car? I said, I don't know. I said, that's all electric beast. I said, a damn Lincoln has a battery the size to power a house, and it always run all that crap. I said, but it's Cadillacs. I don't know what is wrong with these Cadillacs, these newer Cadillacs. And he looked and he said, it's your alternator. It was an alternator or generator. It was
Alternator.
Probably alternator, because it was
Cadillac
it
quit
was like
using
15, 20 years ago. And
Cadillac quit using generators in about 64.
No, this was just 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'm just saying they quit using generators in about 64.
I mean, this was the new luxury car. They were really nice. Remind me of the old Tornados. They were really pretty when they came out. They looked like a Seville. But yeah, and he's like, I think it's that alternator. And he said, but I got an alternator guy. And I said, you know how much the alternator is on this car? And my warranty's no good because it's out of Memphis. I'm too far away. They only do anything from 100 miles around on the warranty that I bought for the car. And so I'm like, oh, man. So my dad says, no problem. He said, let's take this off. And my dad was not car mechanic-y at all. What they call mechanic-y. I was, but not on a new Cadillac too good. But anyway, so we managed to figure out how to get that alternator out. Jacking with it. And he throws it in the back of his car. And we drive down into Santa Monica and go into a place. And he walks in, he says, hi. And I'm like, he is not taking this to like a boat rebuilding place. But he did. This guy specializes in those alternators for the boats. And those big diesel engines and all that. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to crawl in a hole. But my dad was like the king of magic. Everything worked around my dad. It just worked. He could call somebody. He knew somebody. Everything worked in sync. My dad was so lucky. Things worked so well. It was amazing. And not just because people liked him and respected him and he was famous, whatever. It was just because he knew what the hell he was talking about. And he just knew the folks. And so he waltzes in holding this damn alternator. That's $900 from Cadillac, okay? Well, at a parts house. From Cadillac's probably $2,000. And goes in there and says, hey, how you doing? And the guy's like, just great. You know, Paul, how are you? And he says, I need you to rewind this alternator. And the guy says, he looks at it and he goes, well, sure. He said, I'll have it ready in 2 days. And he goes, okay, well, thank you. And he says, and how much will it cost? And it was like $46 or some crazy price.
Well, the first thing he'll do is he'll test it. And because you said rewind, and he knew he wanted it fixed.
Yeah.
And usually on something like that, it's not burnt wiring. It's the internal regulator or the brushes on the slip rings. That's usually what the problem is.
Yeah. Well,
So
it was really
probably
incredible.
the regulator.
It was really incredible. So we went back, sure as hell. My dad's like, I guess we should go down and check on that alternator. And we just drive down there.
Yeah.
He was not a calling person. That's back in the day before people were really into, the car phones and all that crap and cordless phones. And, you just go down there. That's back in the day of answering machines and stuff like that. And so we just popped down over to Santa Monica and went into place. And I'm like, this sucker's not going to be ready. I mean, really? Like you'd have to tip this guy to get him rolling. We walk in there and I'm just standing there, like the puppy dog next to my dad. And he says, well, hi, how you doing? The guy's like, well, hi, Paul, how are you? And he says, how's that alternator doing? And he says, I got it right here. And he put it on the counter and my dad says, great, and how much will that be? And then I'm like, because I had spent so much money. I was there, I only went for like a day. I ended up there like 4 weeks and hanging out with my dad. And so, anyway, my dad whoops it out and pays for it. My dad was not a credit card guy. That's another story. But he whoops it out and pays cash. And we walk out with smiles on our faces. And I'm like, God, I'm going to pay dearly for this. And because you just didn't want your dad paying for nothing.
Yeah.
Now, my dad, he will charge you interest. There's something wrong with that picture. It's like he wants to get rid of you or something. Real quick.
No.
No. My dad.
Somebody else that's like that.
What?
Or that was like that.
What?
Lincoln screamed whenever he was around because he'd pinch it so bad.
What?
Tom.
Oh, Pop.
Yeah.
Tom Hopkins. Yeah. Pop was mechanically inclined?
Yeah. Oh, hell yes.
And he drove those 2 penny cars. He drove that same car for like
absolutely
55 years.
Who do you think kept it up?
That little car.
Who think kept? No. Tom.
No, Pop was pretty incredible, but I didn't know he tinkered with cars.
Yeah, I would.
He could cook. God, he could cook. He was like a woman.
He could
He
work on
could
cars
cook
too.
and clean his
Because
house.
he had that bar,
do his
restaurant, and
bills.
gas station.
Do his bills. But gosh, I never knew he played with cars at all. We spent a lot of time together and talked and everything and hung out. And I don't recall him. Except for when we get in that little 2-penny piece of crap he drove that was like a joke from a flashback from the early 70s. Whatever that thing was he drove.
Oldsmobile.
God, it must have been a 71. And it was just dusty, dirty piece of crap. And it was wretched. It was raggedy.
Yeah.
And
it ran.
It did. It ran. It ran, and that was back in 01 or 2000.
Yeah.
Back then. So that car was what? How many years old? 70,
Probably about 15
80,
years
90,
ago.
100. That was over a 30-year car. A 30-year car before we talked him into buying one. Because he's like, well, it still runs. You know?
Yeah.
That's all he cared about. As long as it was working, it had served a use. He
all
was
it-
saving money, not buying anything.
Doing his own brakes and doing his own tune-ups and oil changes and all that. He kept
Really?
that. Oh yeah.
That car is 30-year-old. Rag.
I was going to.
And he
I
liked
was
it.
going to
He
high
liked
school.
the car.
I was going to high school, and doing the mechanic thing, and in school and all the rest of that. Dad was okay with mechanics, but But Tom had that little bar, restaurant, and gas station, and the gas station had a lift in it, and so he did stuff for people all around the neighborhood. The
Really?
neighborhood. Oh yeah, they'd take it over Tom's.
Jeez.
And so when I'd come up on vacations, I'd help him out, and the two of us would work on it. We had a good time. We bonded that way.
Oh, he liked doing stuff with people.
Oh yeah.
I used to love to watch him cook.
But I
and
remember
stuff.
one time my mother. Tom was in the.
And that was
was
Aura.
in the garage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom was in the garage, puttering around, working on a car, and Mom had asked him to do something, and Tom, when he gets onto something, that you can talk to yourself blue in the face, and he doesn't hear you. He doesn't hear you. He's like me. He's got blinders on, and she'd come out there around over the corner of the garage, and I was there in the garage with him. We were working on a car, had it up in the air.
Yeah.
I think we were working on brakes or something. And Mom says, "Thomas, what are you doing?" And he was pissed. He says, "I'm pissing in the goddamn pistons. Get out of here."
Oh, God.
Pissing in the pistons. I love it.
Reminds me of Bill West.
And
That's a
I'll bet
vlog we
you.
gotta do.
I can bet you could hear him say that.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was kind of like a bullhorn.
Yeah.
When he talked, he had that very deep, resonating voice.
I'm pissing in the pistons.
He's
Get out of here.
something else. He's something else.
But now, he had to do a lot of mechanical work, because if something's going to go wrong with your car,
Yeah.
have my mother drive it.
One of those Murphy's Law deals, huh?
Yes.
Oh, Jesus.
I've never seen anything like it. If something's going to go wrong with a car, let my mother drive it and it'll go wrong.
God.
And most of the time, usually before she gets out of the driveway.